Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we're learning Bava Kama daf Sadi Zayin. We're going to begin on Sadi Vav Amid Beis by the two dots, about 12 lines from the bottom. Rameir Omer Ba'avadim Omer Lahari Shachal Afanecha. So if a person steals a Eved, even though if he gets older, so according to the Shita of Rameir, he holds that you can just give him back as is. We do not say that you have to pay kashasek zela, but rather you can give it to him, give it as is. And as we discussed previously, it's due to the fact that an eved has a similar status as karka, namely that it's in an exelas, and therefore the ganav is not koine, and therefore because of that you can just give it back as is. Omer Rav Chanina bar Avdimi Omer Rav Halach Rameir. In fact, the halacha is like this. Rav Shavik Rabban Aviyavik Rameir, I understand. Not everyone holds like this. The Mishnah says, Tanakama tells us that you pay kashasek zela. So Rameir's a das yachid. So why would you hold like him? So Ami Mishum de Braisa Ibcha. Because I'll show you in the Braisa that we find Ibcha Tanya, that we actually learn the opposite. So it says the Mishnah, says the Rashi, Rameir Omer kashasek zela v'cham Omer Bavadim Arho Shachavanecha. The Kamarav Halachik Rameir de Masnisin Dehainu Rabban the Braisa. So he's not really holding like Rameir, but he's holding like the opinion of Harshal Chavanecha, which he understands is really the Shita of the Rabbanan. Okay, so that's how we're answering. For Rav Shavik Masnisin Vavik Braisa, I understand. But that's not what the Mishnah says. You're going to hold like a Braisa, not like the Mishnah. The Mishnah says it's Rameir who holds that you say Harshal Chavanecha. So Rav Masnisin Nami Evcha Tani. He says you flip the Mishnah around too. My time with the Rav, the Apich Masnisa Mekmei de Braisa. So why are you flipping around the Mishnah? Because the Braisa, Ad Rav Nibach Braisa Mekmei Masnisin. You should flip the Braisa around because of the substantiance of the Mishnah. The Mishnah has more substance. So Ami Rav Nami Masnisin Ivcha Asnuye. So Rav, also the Mishnah is also the other way around. In other words, Rabbisav, his rabbis, also learned the Mishnah was, and the Brisa was that way. The only time we're not going to turn one from the other is if it's one against one. However, if we can find two Brises that support one opinion, even though the Mishnah says the opposite, so then we're not going to say, oh, why would you hold like a brisa over the Mishnah? Because you have two brises that are going to say one thing that's stronger than one. And how do we find another brisa that says this? The Sanya Hamachlev Par B'Chamor. So as we saw, actually we're going to see, I guess, in Bamatzia, the one who exchanges a cow for a donkey, V'yolda, and it gives birth. V'chein Hamoicher Shivchasai, the person who sells his maidservant, V'yolda, and she gives birth. So Zelimir Bershus Yalda, Vola Shaisik, Zachaba. So in this situation, one says that the birth took place in my Rishus, which that person is Bari. And the other one is Shaisik, which sounds like they're Shema, they don't know. So we apply the concept of Zachaba, that Bari Adif, that this person, we believe, because the fact that he says this, it must be, he knows what he's talking about. Let's look at Rashi. Hamachlif. So the behema enu niknas bekesef. When it comes to a shivcha and a behema, you can't acquire them with money. Ad sheyimshach. You actually have to do mashicha by pulling the animal. V'chi moshach davar hanirul einayim. Who, when you pull, then it's something which is seen by people. Im yol de im lav. Vein kan safik. So when it comes to mashicha, it's obvious you're going to pull the animal. So since everyone saw you pull the animal, we'll see did the animal give birth or not. So then there's not going to be a suffix by a mashicha. Of a chalipin, when it comes to an exchange through chalipin, they didn't actually do mashicha. All what happened was the owner of the cow pulled the donkey, but the owner of the donkey originally did not pull the cow. So Mashiach wasn't done on the cow. But niknas apara el bal chamor b'mashiachas achamor b'chol makom shehi. Through this inyan of chalipin, the din is that no matter where the animal is, the fact that the chamor was pulled, din mashicha, so therefore you're also the other person will be kind of the cow, even though mashicha was not done. Kidanan kedushin, kol nasa damim ba'acher, kivan shezachsam zeh nischay zeh b'chalipin. So once one did a kinyan, the other one automatically is kind of through chalipin. V'yadin and hashdi kvar yod the par b'shas mashichas achamor b'shus moicher yolda ulach mashichas achamor b'shus loikeach yolda. So therefore, that's why we can understand how is there a suffix whether or not the par gave birth is because there was no mashicha done on the par. There was a mashicha done on the chamor, and out through chalipin, the din is that you're also kind of the para. Now we don't know when the par gave birth. V'chein hachamor shiv chasa, if you sell a servant, Evid Kanaini nikna mekasef. Now we know an Evid Kanaini could be acquired with money. V'afagav she'ein lefaneinu b'shas matan mois. Even if that Evid Kanaini is not there when the money was exchanged. So when the kinyan took place, you don't know when the birth took place. And halosh shosik. So as Rashi says, we have a bar v'shem b'bar adif. So obviously we're going to listen to the person who says that it was b'rshusi yolda. Back in the Gemara. Ze'omer eni yodeh v'ze'omer eni yodeh. You have a shema and a shema, so yachlaiku. So you split it up because mammon hamutal b'safek chayilkin. Ze'omer b'rshusi v'ze'omer b'rshusi. What happens if both people are bari? So you shava hamoicher. So the seller has to make the shua sheb'rshusai yolda, that it was born in his rishus. Why? So there's a basic rule that when there's this time of making a shvua, we don't make a shvua and then you take, but rather you make a shvua so you don't pay. So therefore the moicher will simply make a shvua on his end, and then he's not going to end up paying. Fine. So that's Dibur Rameir. Cham oimrim einish boyin loyal avadim v'al karkais. You don't make a shvua on an eved, and you don't make a shvua on land. It says Rashi almul rabbanan avdikim karkai dami. So we see clearly that according to the sheet of the rabbanan, an eved is like land. So what? So that means just like land, you can say harshal chavanecha. So too when it comes to an eved. So we see that's actually the rabbanan who's of the opinion that we can say harshal chavanecha by an eved. So therefore, this is a second brisa which substantiates that this is actually the proper shita, and therefore he's really passing like the shita chachamim. Now, hi halacha karameir, halacha karabanim miboile. That's all good, but why does he say the halacha karameir? He's actually not saying the halacha karameir. He's saying the halacha Rabbi Yehuda based on those two other brises. Hachakamer. Well, my diavchisu usnisu halacha karameir. Basically, about flipping it around and turning it around. The halacha is like Rameir. Again, really the halacha is like the Rabbanan, but the way that it's framed, you would think that based on the language of the Mishnah, the halacha would be like Rameir. But of course, it was flipped around. As we continue to study Zayin Adalf, Mi Omer Rav Avda Kamikar Dami. Does Rav really hold that a slave, an Eved Kanaini, has the same status as land? V'yomer Rav Daniel Barav Katina Omer Rav. Let's say you grab hold onto your friend's Eved, and he does work, Potter. So you do not have to pay the owner for the rent. If an Eved is like land, my Potter. Why are you Potter? You use the Baal's Eved. So it's like you rented it. So obviously we must hold that he does not hold an Eved like karka. Now, hachmaiskinan shul b'shas molacha. So what does that mean? It says Rashi, b'shah she'enu ragil lasus molacha. This is a time when he normally doesn't do work. The zen nehenev is ein chaser who pater, because of the concept zen nehenev is all chaser. So the din is that you're going to be pater in that situation because he wasn't going to work for you anyway. But it has nothing to do with karka being like metalton. Kihad deshalchle Rabbi Abul Amari bar Mar Boimine sent him the following question: Mirav Huna. Hadar b'chatzachaver shul medaitu sachar asol sachar or ein sarcha also sachar. This Gemara we had previously on Daf Chaf Aleph. Hope you remember that. It was only about 70 days ago. So the question is, if you're living in someone else's chutzner, someone else's property, do you have to pay rent or not? And he said you do not have to pay rent. Why? So he said because that's a case of zen hena v'zelu chaser. As we said, this is a case where since you're getting hana because you have nowhere else to go, and v'zelu chaser because he doesn't rent it out anyway, so in that situation you don't have to pay rent. So hachi hashna bishlam hasam bein l'man dermer beisam meis v'yosef nichalei bein l'man dermer siyuchas shar nichalei. Now, why is it good to have someone in your property? Either because a house is meant to be sat in, and therefore by him getting hana, it actually helps the house because you'll know if there's any problems as opposed to an empty house. Or because of Shasei Yukas Shar, which is a shade, Rashi reminds us, Shmo Shia, Mikates Sha'arim B'Kaisle Habayis Ein Adam Dor B'Toicha. So a shade will go, this particular demon, if you will go into a property in which people are not there. So it becomes like a haunted house. So over there, the reason why you're pater by Zen Hemnazol Chaser is because you're actually doing a huge favor on some level by living there. So you don't have to pay schar. The fact that you're causing his eved to work, it could be a terrible thing because now he's exhausted and he's going to be weakened. He's not going to be effective because he works 9 to 5 and now you had him work extra hours, so he's going to be weaker. So we know so Rashi says, Shlo Yilma Darche Habatala. It's actually a good thing because if he has too many hours off, you get lazy. So it's at a certain point, maybe it's good to rest, but there's a little bit too much rest, and then all of a sudden you become lazy. So therefore, the fact that he worked his eved is actually on some level beneficial, even though it's shlo b'shas malacha. Okay, the loy listere avde. Berav Yosef bar Chama havi tokif avde the inchi, the masik behuzuzi. So he used to take the avadim in which for the people that owed him money, value malacha, and he had their avadim do work for him because they owed him money. Amalei Rabba Beret, my tavad amar hachi. Why do you do this? Amalei the Amar Nachman, avda nahum karese lu shave. An eved, even the bread that fills his stomach, is also not good. It's not worth anything anyway. So Amalei Ema the Amar Rab Nachman. When does Rab Nachman say this statement that an eved basically doesn't even earn his own keep for the amount of food that he eats? Can go into Ar Avde. If we're talking about Daro Avde, says, okay, Dari Avde. We'll get look in Rashi in a minute. The Meraked Bekubi, because he's busy dancing. Kul Avde Mevid Avde. But all these other Avadim, they actually are doing good work. So he's saying that statement that, he doesn't really do much work, that's an exceptional person who basically all he does is dance around. This guy doesn't really work so much. So the work is actually more valuable than the food. So how could, again, you take him away? Amli Anna Kirav Daniel severely. The Rav Daniel Bar Rav Katina Imarav Hataykif Ba'avda Shalchaver. If you take your friend's Eved, the Asaba Malacha, and you did work with him, Potter. As we said, it's good that he doesn't get lazy. That's only the situation where we're not dealing with monetary compensation. In this situation, because they owe you money, it looks like ribis, because they're going to pay you the amount that they owe you eventually, but nonetheless, you're going to end up taking this extra money, so to speak, because this Ev is doing work for you. Shalom adaitu and sachar, you don't have to pay rent. However, hilvahi, let's say you, the malva, were there, the darba chatzir chavero, and you slept in the loiva's home, sachar. In the same case, the malva will have to pay. So because otherwise it looks exactly like ribis. Armalei hadri bi. So basically he agreed that he made a mistake, and therefore he retracted. Itmar hataykif finasei shel chavero. Let's say someone grabbed hold of his friend's boat, v'yasabo malacha, and he used this person's boat to do work. Amarav ratza sachara naitel ratza pechasa naitel. If he wants, he can take the pechasa, to sachara. He could take the rent or the pechasa. Says Rashi. Im nishbra oniskalkel. Let's say the boat broke or got ruined. Udemei pechasa yiserin al sachara, and the value of the difference of it going down in value is more than the amount that you should have paid him for rent. Noitel demei pechasa. So then you have to take. You can take the difference. In other words, the guy will get the more of the two, either the rent or the deduction of the boat which went down in value. Shmuel Eimer eno noita el pechasa. The guy only will get the deductions if again it got ruined. Amra papa lo pligi. They actually don't argue. Had avid agra, had lo avid agra. Says Rashi. Avid agra. Mistamam ki nachas la daita de agra nachas. He probably went there for his rent. Hilkach labatar's gazlan daninle. He's not like a gazlan. He's not a thief. V'naisin sachara al karchai. He imravenhain al demei pachasa, and therefore he should pay the rent. So because it's something which is avid l'agra, which is typically rented out, so he doesn't look like he's not a ganav, so he should only pay for the rent. However, hadaloi abda agra lo yoiv el pachasa. So you don't pay the rent because it's nothing which is normally rented out. So if it's usually rented out, so then maybe you should be able to pay for the rental. So if your das was for rental, then you can do rent. If your intention was for stealing, says Rashi, even if the rent is more, you only give the deduction. Okay. Question 3. It's a little choppy, but let's look at question 3. So he says like this. Lo avidil agra, if it's not for rent, then nois pachasa. Then you should give the deductions. Avidil agra, if it's for rent, it depends. Inachas are adaita the gazanusa. If his intention was not for renting, but it was to steal, then nois pachasa. However, if he did it with the intention to rent, then ratza noitel sachara, ratza noitel pachasa. If you want, you can take the wages for the rental or for the pachasa. So again, it just depends on who we're dealing with in this situation. Okay, let's continue. So gozel matbeim and nistak v'chulu. So the Mishnah said that let's say a person stole a coin and it cracked, or v'nistak peros, the fruit, and it cracked. You stole fruit and it got rotten, wine, it became vinegary. So it says you misham kashas exela. He has to pay kashas exela, not the way it is now, at a more expensive amount. Okay, so on this the Gemara continues and says as follows: Omer Rav Huna nistak mamish. When it says regarding this coin, it means it mamish cracked. It mamish cracked. Nistak mamish. Nifsal pasaltu malchus. When we say it's pasul, it says Rashi, Hamelach siva shul yetze lo b'medina zu, v'lo b'medina cheres. The country basically said this coin is worthless, cannot be used in this country, can't be used in any other country. Rabbi Yehuda Omer pasaltai Malchus nami hainu nistok. He says no, that is comparable to it being nistok, completely again cracked, because the Mishnah then said the case of if you have a matbei of a nifsal, right? So when it comes to a matbei of a nifsal, so he said you can say harshal chavanecha. So the question is, what is matbei of a nistok, and what is matbei of a nifsal? So again, according to one pshat, matbei of a nifsal, you have to give it because it's cracked. However, matbei of a nifsal, even though it's totally not worth, it's considered like completely worthless. Nonetheless, the Gemara said that's the same thing as nistok. That meaning actually is like nistok, and therefore it's kashas exela. El hechadami nifsal. So what is the case where it says matbei of a nifsal that you say harshal fanacha? It does have some utility. It can be used in another country, but just not here. So there you can say harshal fanacha. That nifsal is pesalto malchus, that they said it's totally worthless, this coin. Hari paris v'her kivu. When it comes to fruit that's rotten, yain v'hichmetz, wine that become vinegary, the chi pesalto malchus dami. It sounds very similar to pasal malchus, that is worthless. It's rotten fruit. So before, when we talked about, again, this pesalto malchus, if the coin can't be used anywhere, it is shinoi nicker, since everyone knows this change on this coin. So, but over here we're asking a question on Rav Huna. If it is a worthless coin, it should be like rotten fruit, rotten food, or bad wine. So Amalei Hasam Nishtana time of Arechai. Hachel Nishtana. Over there, when it comes to these fruits and everything like that we say it's Kashas Exela, is because it's completely changed. The taste, the smell. Over here, Lo Nishtana. The coin didn't change. It was just a decree on the court, this country. And therefore it's not the same thing as these fruits. Even though they're worthless. That it has the same din as nistok, that you give it kishas exela. Har truma v'nitmis. When it comes to truma, which can't tame. The chi pasalta malchus nami. It's like being pasal malchus, that you can't use it. But over there we said you can say harshal fanacha. So amalei hasam lo minker hazeka. Hacha minker hazeka. When it comes to truma, which became tameh, the reason why you can say, based on our Mishnah, truma v'nitmis, like chametz shavuot Pesach, it's a chametz sheinu nicker, and therefore you can say harshal fanacha. However, in this case, because everyone knows about it, right, it's a coin that cannot be used anywhere, so therefore it's a hezek, which is nicker, so therefore it's kashas exela. So that's what we're saying. Okay, question 4. So if it's a coin which is nifsal, which is totally worthless. So certainly, if you can use it somewhere else, you can definitely say Basalta malchus completely. That's a machlokas Rav Huna. It's a machlokas between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda, what the din is in that case, which is the same question as TB 26. Gazel matbei of a nifsal ha'im oimor ha'shofenech. Let's say I wrote. Im ha'matbei yachol l'mayvid b'modai yochel modai. Right? Avol rak, and therefore that's what you can say ha'shofenech. Should go to modai. Avol rak im zeh shayach lasois v'lo b'zman shehamalchus hey mekablim zed zeh makbidim and zed zeh. I can completely do this. Avol im hamatbeya in yochel lahevid b'chlal, it can't be used at all. Also yochel loimer harshofenecha. That's not exactly the answer, but okay, it's somewhat in the ballpark. Okay, so that's again, it's really the same. TB 26 is really the same question as question 4. And again, really, if it's a coin that could be used, then you could definitely say harshal fanacha. It's a coin that cannot be used at all, so then it's actually a machlokas if you can say harshal fanacha. That's really, I think that's all they were asking for. Fine, let's continue. Itmar, last line. Hamalvis chaveru el matbeya, a person who lends coins lends to his friend, al ha-matbeya. In other words, so Rashi shekatzos loimois, he designated a certain amount of money. They agreed to pay up the loan with this invalid currency, right? V'nivsala ha-matbeya, right? This coin actually became invalid. So what is the din? So Rav Omer, as we continue to Tzadik Zayin Amud Beis, Noisin loy matbeya hayotz ba'isa shah. So he says you should give the coin which can be used at that time. Says Rashi, b'shas piroyin, at the time of the loan, to hakibel lav l'asei salo matbeya. He was said this particular coin. V'hai lav matbehu, but the truth is this is not a coin. V'dafka hilva paragmatia of a halvo mois es shehilvohu mishalimo. So that's the sheet of Rav. Shmuel Eimer Yachol Lech Hoitzi LaMeishan. That's what I was saying over there. That you can just tell him, go to Meishan. So even, apparently it's a coin that cannot be used anymore here. The question is, since it can be used elsewhere, can you say, like Harshal Fanecha, that you should bring it to Meishan? Or do we say, no, that this is not a coin, and therefore it won't work? Omer Rav Nachman Mastaber Milsa to Shmuel, that says you can bring it to somewhere else, to Islay or Chalamezel Lameshan, where the Malva has the lender has the capacity to actually get to Meishan, to be able to actually use these coins. Of Leslie Urcha Lo, but there's no way he can get there, then you can't really say, oh, go to Meishan. It's not possible. It's on the other side of the world. So he's making that distinction. So Eisvei Rava Rav Nachman. So Rava asked a question of Rav Nachman. You, Rav Nachman, are saying that we're making a distinction in the sheet of Shmuel that it all depends if the Malva can get there. It says like this: Ein machalan al hamois shenim yoitzais. You cannot be machalel onto money if that money cannot be used in Yerushalayim. Says Rashi. Okay, al moishe and yoitzas klal Yerushalayim. We'll have kesef tzur krin bay. It's not considered to be like money. So ketzad hayu mois kuzbius Yerushalayim. If you have money kuzbius Yerushalmius oshel malachim harishainim of the first kings, ein mechalin, then you can't use that because those coins are not used in Yerushalayim. Hashel achrayim doing rishainim mechalin. However, if let's say you have later generations, right, another country which is similar to the Rishayim, then you could be mechal in Yerushalayim, even though right now it cannot be used there. But so therefore we see it doesn't really make any difference. It's mechal. It says Rashi, the afagav deleisli urchel hasam, even though you can't get there. But makam shiyitzin shahar Yerushalayim sarach leilech l'hoitzion. But Kashal Rav Nachman a libid Shmuel the Yomer aval leisli urchel leimeshin loy. Apparently, it doesn't make any difference even if you can't get there. So my hachma my skin the machine malchios makpidos zu al zu. We're talking about where the countries are not makpid one another, and therefore you're able to get there. Elokiyam Shmuel ki shemalchios makpidos zu al zu. Heichi matzim mamtilahu. So how can you get there? The mamtil al chak. You could get there, but it could be a little bit difficult. Deloy bach shei. So again, it says Rashi Mishani. The answer is before that. Kishimalchas makbidos haki badki lahu b'nei medina zu v'mashachi loyoysa moyis mifsadilei. They'll end up taking all your money. Mishani deloy bach shei. Shein makpidin kol kach. They're not so makpid. Shei boitkin that they're going to check into your money. Mechapsin al davar zeh. The ishkache, if they would find the money kapti, they would be strict, but they're not going to really search you. Hilkach islay orcha shenitzrach leilech sham yikabam miyotzim l'sham b'schayra. So you could actually go there. Ve'ilav hoyel ve'in yochel l'roisam b'kan b'farhesiel l'bnei meishim roim im ratza lo yikablim. Okay. Ve'im ishkache kapti. Again, if they find it, they'll be makbid, but they're not going to search. Therefore, you could talk and go. So therefore, this is still not a kasha on the sheet of Rav Nachman. He does make this distinction whether the malva can go to Meishan or not. Tashma in machal no moishel kan. You can't be machal on money from here. v'hein bebavel, or for that matter, v'shel bavel v'hein kan, shel bavel v'hein bavel mechalin. However, from bavel to bavel, this is referring to the dinim of Meiser Sheni, you could be mechal. And Rashi says over here, katani mi is ein mechalin al mois shel kan. You can't be mechal on money of there. V'hein bebavel alma. Afa gad the isla or chalamation. Even if you could get there, could go in hacha the seif lalais kan l'hoitzian befil hachi l'karli mois hayotzis. So this is actually on the other side of the question, that even if you could go there, we still see it doesn't work. Right? Katani mias ein mechalin al mois shel kan v'hein bebavel afa gad the seif l'meisa kohasim. Even if you're going to go there, so hasim b'maiskinan kishemalchuyos makbidois zu al zu. Since they're makbid to one another, you can't get there, and therefore it would be like a sakana for you to go there, and therefore that would not work. Ihachi shel bavel v'hein bebavel amai chazu the zaven behu behema umasig Yerushalayim, that you could engage in the purchasing of an animal and bring it to Yerushalayim. V'asanya hiskinu shehi hamayis yotzes Yerushalayim mipnei kach. That we learn, says Rashi, v'mai katani l'el v'loy al shel bavel v'hein kan. Why does it mention bavel in there? Amar Rav Zera Lukasha. Kam bizman she'ad Yisrael takifa al umnois oilam. Kam bizman she'ad umas oilam takifa al atzman. The question is, who's in control in these situations? If Yid is in control, then you're more likely to be able to go there. What is the coin of Yerushalayim? David Yerushalayim mitzad echad. On one side it has David Shlomo. Yerushalayim ir hakodesh mitzad acher. It's on the other side. Ve'ezehu matbeah shel Avraham Avinu. Zaken uzakein mitzad echad. You have two elders on one side of the coin. Ubachor besul mitzad acher, and a young man and woman on the other side. The Zaken Zakena is Avraham and Sarah. B'amine Rabbi Rav Chista. Hamalves chavera al hamatbeya v'hoisifa olav mahu. A person lends his friend for the sake of a coin, and then v'hoisifa olav, and then says Rashi ali b'darav the omer noisel matbeya shel oisa shah. What is the din? So amalo noisel matbeya hayetz v'oisa shah. So he says you can give him this coin. Amali v'fil ki nafia. So he says even ki nafia. So amalei in amalei afilu ki tartia. Amalei in v'aka zaylin peri. It should be usher to give a bigger coin, as again it looks like ribis. So Amar Ravashi chazinan imach mastiva zil menachinanle. Then it's possible that you actually will have to make a deduction, because otherwise it looks like ribis. Sadi chesam and alf. V'imach mastara zil lo menachinan le. However, says Rashi, Shaba geshamim, rain comes, v'nimsu roiv tuvuos ba'olim, there's a bumper crop, v'huzul paris, and the fruits go down in value, then we don't deduct. Abahaka shavach le'inyan nascha, it went increased as far as the metal. El kiha de rapapa Rav Huda de Yeshua abdi uvda bezuzi di ag rad mis taya ad yuz betamnia. Okay, let's look at some questions. We're going to stop at that piece, the fourth one from the top, and let's see what we have over here. Question 5. Hamalves chavero al hamatbeya v'hoisifo olav alibid arav the noisen lo mimatbeya hayotzim oisa shah he menachal loy hatoisafos. You have to make a deduction. So we said it depends. Im husul peris machmas hatoisafes. If the fruits went down because of the additions, then you should deduct the sheer hatosefes. V'im lav. V'imochus didn't go down. Ad toisefes chaimish noisen lo mematbeya acharon v'loy menachalo. Avol im noisev chaimish menachalo hatoisafos. Okay, it's not so clear how you see that. Okay. Question TA 25. Machalin al mois shel bavel v'hen bebavel. Heich machalin v'halu chazu. How does it fit? So he says, this is 25. Zavin behen behema umasik Yerushalayim. It means, what it just means is you should purchase a animal, the zavin behu behema umasik Yerushalayim. So that's TA 25. Rabbi Giver. Okay, let's see. Gosel matbeya v'nifsol armul harsha fanecha. Man nifsol. One Madimur says becomes invalid in all kingdoms. One Madimur says one kingdom is invalidated, but is still valid elsewhere. Hanoisin pragmatio chaveroi v'katzatzloi mois v'nifsol hamatbeya masar chashalmo. So what do you do about this coin? So one Madimur you pay the matbeya of now, and not the matbeya which was nifsal. One Madimur says you may give him the coins, which is this town, in this town is puzzle, and tell him to spend them when he travels to Meishan, Rav Nachman only if he'll go there. Mam moyel l'chalel Paris meiser sheni bebavel al mois shibabavel im malchiyos makbidazu al zu then yochel havin Yerushalayim. Before the border, you again will redeem this money onto an animal, as we just said. Mahim habeis tenoyin b'chiyagav hazerg matbeh shel chaver yam agadol adkan.